Let's get educated. That's why we're here, to bring you the stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses. It's time for a little education.
Hello, everyone. I am Katie Patrick. As always, I am joined to my left, your right, by David Fiorazzo and Mr. David Fiorazzo. He has matters of the heart and the world to discuss. And today, you discussed some of those matters.
That's right.
On Worldview Matters. What'd you talk about?
That's right. A little bit about Halloween, but that was, and Christians celebrating, you have to put that in air quotes. But the main focus was with Sarah Christensen and Shante Watkins with Frontline Harvest Ministry. It's a ministry out of Green Bay that helps women, particularly those who come out of prison and need to start somewhere. And man, a lot of these women are rough and around the edges, so to speak, and Sarah and Shante and their staff there help them out, and it is a long process of discipleship, but they get them grounded in the truth of God's word, then they help them with practical things as well. So we talked about a lot of important things on how to minister to people who really need help. There you go. Subscribe at worldviewmatters.tv, and we appreciate everybody that shares about the show, because it's still new. I can say new for 6 months.
Or a whole year.
Or a year. New show,
newlywed show. That's how they do it. Well, just a quick reminder out there that if you enjoy watching videos that are not censored, please do follow us on our Rumble channel. Simply go to rumble.com/FreedomProject and then give it a little follow, and you'll see Educated, you'll see Worldview Matters, you'll see all the things uncensored for once. But let's turn to the news at hand. In a shocking turn of events, shocking I say,
yes,
a majority of Republicans and Democrats now agree that American children should be given the right to attend whatever public school best suits their needs. Whoa! It is actually quite shocking that we are having people on both sides of the aisle, if you will, actually agree.
Katie, this did surprise me, and I'm not surprised by much in the news today. But yeah, this is because of the bipartisan support. There's the headline, school choice for K through 12 students gets bipartisan support in a new poll. So yeah, I had to look at this twice because I was skeptical when I first saw this article and this poll. Then, okay, what's going on there? Are they skewing this? Skew? Skew. Something's a tad askew here. So anyway, both Dems and Repubs expressed significant support for school choice. This is for K through 12, according to this poll last week. It's become a hot button issue across the country, and states like North Carolina, Oklahoma recently approved different measures creating more options when parents have to decide where to send their kids to school. My brain is spinning because usually you would think if you look at basic arguments in the news over the last decade or two on school choice, you would think the Dems would be like 50% and the Republicans would be like 90%. So, Katie, can you help me out here?
Yeah, this just goes to show the greater picture here. Over the past couple years, when we had that COVID-19 thing, people might be, and when I say people, I mean like parents might be, and average everyday people might be waking up to the reality that, you know what, our kids are not getting educated at all. And so I think normal everyday people again are putting aside the politics and being like, what's best for this country? This poll was conducted end of September with about 1,200 people. They were interviewed. And then after they got interviewed, it got brought down to about 1,000 people participating. So this isn't talking to the union representatives. This is not talking to, I'm sure there are some teachers in there, but it's not talking to the politicians. It's not talking to the media folk. It's talking to you and me.
Okay.
And if you and I are actually represented here and sampled accurately, then yes, this makes sense that we would actually get this type of response, because people know that we have a society that is quickly rolling down the hill into the pits of hell. So anyway, according to the poll, if you look, when asked about, flexibility and how would that improve the education system, they think that if you make the K-12 education system more flexible for families, overall, it would strengthen our nation's overall education system. 33% of the people said they would strongly improve if we were more flexible. 36% said, hey, I think it would somewhat improve. So that's a total of 69% of people saying that if we're a little bit more flexible with what we got going on here in our education, it would make us better overall.
Well, define flexibility.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what it is. But
right.
They're talking about, education tax credits is one of the questions they actually addressed specifically. Do you think if the families were given an income tax credit for education expenses, would that improve or weaken our nation's overall education system? And again, the strongly versus the somewhat, but 56% said, hey, I think it'll improve it. And the people who don't know just aren't paying attention. And then again, when we look at following COVID and everything that's happened, the question is, for following COVID, many states have started to create more flexible educational environments. And that's talking about giving more choices in how their child receives an education, the schools that they're allowed to actually go to, and financial resources to help pay for school and other expenses. So basically giving families kind of a little bit more control back to them and more, would you say, power back to them? In general, then, do you support or oppose making K-12 the more flexible? So this is where it's really quite interesting. When you put it in, that's the whole long question that they asked. 44% strongly support giving more flexibility. 38% somewhat support giving back. So that's 82% of people who are like, give support, like they support giving that control back to the families. What a novel concept.
So toward the end of the article, interesting, they asked if parents would support allowing children to attend whatever school in the state, help them get the best education. Both parties increased their approval rating by nearly 20%. That's what's interesting. And what you were saying earlier, I think makes a lot of sense, because in the last couple years, particularly with the Drag Queen Story Hour and some of the sexualized education and the parents attending school board meetings like they never used to.
Correct.
I mean, we're seeing more of that. For both parties, Democrat and Republican, this has increased by nearly 20%. So another thing, independence.
Look at the independence.
Overwhelming support when asked about school choice, 85%. So, Katie, will this change anything? Yeah. So the poll comes out, there's support, but will this change anything?
Not unless we can change the hearts of the politicians and the media and all of them. But the fact that the needle is quivering a little bit there. The needle's afraid. It may move. There's a quiver in that needle. It may move a little bit more. There's pressure being put on. There's chance. I mean, it's not like overnight we're going to get some amazing changes happening, but cracks are forming. The needle's moving. Things are happening.
How long did it take to get here? But anyway, still to come, the Chicago School District, get this, wants taxpayers to pay over $14 billion for renovations, despite a large percentage of their buildings are not even half full. And we're talking about that next.
I have found over the years that if we are not talking about crime in Chicago, we are talking about another failure in Chicago.
Oh, I mean,
it's always something failing in Chicago. It could be their sports teams. Last time their sports teams were good was Michael Jordan and the Bulls, probably. But anyway, I digress. Moving on. Take that.
I think
cubby.
the Blackhawks.
Hockey. That's fine. Whatever. Anyway, this time we're actually talking about those Chicago public schools, which are failures as well. And they are seeking $14 billion. Billions.
Is that a typo?
Billions. Yes, $14 billion to modernize the facilities, despite, again, many of the schools are at less than 50% capacity. So that's something. Well, now, there are 522 public school buildings in the district, which is, if you think, wow, Chicago is enormous in terms of how many children they serve, and the fact that they have 522 public school buildings to maintain, you could make it seem how much money it would cost to maintain, but and half the people, some of these people aren't even there. there are 473 traditional schools within those 522 public school buildings, and over a third of the city's schools are less than 50% capacity. So right away, you're like, okay, we'll close down some of those schools and then just put the kids over there. But here's what they want to do instead. Only 122 district schools are actually at 80% or more. So we would call this, like, maybe we should combine it, right? 170 schools are at less than half capacity. It's silly.
That's abysmal.
Yeah. According to the district releasing their 2023 Chicago Public Schools Educational Facilities Master Plan.
There it is. There's
the longer the
cover of
title, the
master
more
plan.
nonsense that's included. If you haven't learned that one yet.
Lefties.
Yeah. This is serving as the basis for the district's upcoming 5-year strategic plan. And the report claimed that its school buildings are old and in need of repair, and they estimated that actually it's $14.4 billion. I just rounded down to $14 billion, but $14.4 billion are needed for renovation. And hey, right now, right this minute, urgently, we need $3 billion of that. Could you just turn it over to us? $3 billion? Who's got $3 billion? Anyone? Didn't think so. Maybe some of those very rich residents, or I don't even know. Does Oprah still live in Chicago? Maybe she could contribute a little bit.
She's probably got a few houses there.
Yes, this is true. Now, according to that report, the document includes a full accounting of our district's total facility needs, which total $14.4 billion. In a district as large as ours, and with a building portfolio as old as ours, this is the investment it would take to repair and modernize each and every one of our current facilities and give our students the learning environment we know they deserve. David,
wait a minute.
Let's
Okay.
translate what that means.
Let's talk about the learning environment they know they deserve. How are they learning now? And I know this is a good argument when you've got buildings that are half full or less, and you're spending billions to renovate or whatever, all these other buildings. But let's talk about the actual purpose of education and how are they succeeding at that in Chicago? That should be the greater argument. Then it brings up this debate, Katie Petrick. It brings up this debate. So you're saying that only schools where kids are doing well, they should be having the money, the funding come in to help, take care of the buildings and renovate. That would leave out some of the schools where children are doing poorly.
Well, yes,
right?
But
it wouldn't be fixed up.
Yeah, what this is going to be the argument, as reading between the lines on this one, is give us more money because our buildings are old, and that means that's why our kids can't succeed. And
Right.
I mean, yes, we only have half the capacity of the number of kids who can fit in those buildings, but if you make it modernized, then maybe those buildings will be full.
Then the kids will do better.
Then the kids will all show up to school now and be actually butts in the seats.
Yeah,
kind
they'll
of a
be
thing.
more enthusiastic about learning.
That's what they're trying to make that argument.
More money,
but
more money.
It's always the more money argument, the perpetual problem. If we solve the problem, we'd find another quote unquote problem because it's a perpetual problem. Now the district CEO. The way they have, the fact that they call it a district CEO, doesn't that just make you think like it's a business and not an actual educational environment?
Yep.
His name is Pedro Martinez. He explained that the school system plans to upgrade its facilities to provide 21st century academic programming.
What does that mean?
Doesn't that just sound like it's a Hollywood company? We're going to provide you 21st century academic programming. Here you go, kids. They're going to equip the schools with state-of-the-art labs to support STEM education, specialized classrooms, outfitted. The marketing they're trying to put on this.
Outfitted.
For career and technical education, accommodations that will allow our diverse learners to thrive, new auditoriums for our performing arts, and new fields for athletics.
It's amazing they put that last. Usually the athletics comes first.
Well, they're trying to hide it on this one. When you're trying to pull in $14.4 billion, and how many of those schools they want brand new football, soccer facilities that cost at least $7.2 million for just the sporting complex. So it's probably actually more increased. That's a number I pulled from 5 years ago when I used to cover local sports school stuff. Anyway.
Who makes the decisions now? They request this money. If it's the politicians, because they're locked in with the Democrat education system, the school boards, and the unions, teachers' unions. So is it just a matter of the politicians signing away, okay, taxpayers, you're going to be paying for this? Who makes the decision? Where does this go?
The unions have to fight with the school, which they're hand in hand on this, and then
Fight
they have
with the
to
school.
Normally it would be a battle between them, but it's not in this instance. Like the unions are going to request, hey, we need more money, because the unions always request, hey, we need more money. The school itself in this instance is also saying, hey, we need more money, and the union's going to be like, yep, they do need more. Like, they're going to work hand in hand. Sometimes they fight with their contracts, but in this instance, they're both in agreement.
Aligned.
So they're going against the taxpayers who are going to have to pay for it.
They will be paying.
So there's that.
So taxes will be going up.
There's no real sign-off,
in Illinois.
Just so everyone's aware very quickly, the CPS, Chicago Public Schools, argued that the upgrades would create an equitable, quality learning environment for their students.
Oh,
and they also claimed that the renovations would save our city money in the long run by eliminating the extra costs of rushing from emergency repair to emergency repair.
What?
Yeah, and of course, the main part, David, the main thing is that by renovating the facilities, they will be more sustainable and reduce our carbon footprint.
Oh, wow.
So that's the main.
Oh, wow. By all means,
I mean,
then,
the kids' education, yeah, whatever.
That justifies the $14 billion then.
$14.4 billion.
You should have led with that, Katie.
I'm sorry, I failed you.
Sustainability, my goodness.
I failed you. All right, well, despite billions of dollars all over the place being invested in schools across the country, not just in Chicago, ACT scorers have fallen for the 6th consecutive year. We're going to talk about it next.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on pristine quality bedding, towels, slippers, signature pillows, and much more when you use the code EDUCATED. That's EDUCATED. Educated. Support this show and a great American company.
So we know that it's not money that makes one rich with knowledge. But our school systems keep insisting that, yes, give us the money and that will help us make us rich with knowledge. Meanwhile, we have our ACT scores out there, and they have fallen for the 6th consecutive year in 2023, despite the billions of dollars that have been spent by the federal government to prevent that learning loss that we keep calling about. And this is all according to a report from ACT Inc. Right? They're the nonprofit that administers the exam. And just this past year here, 1.38 million students took the ACT. Now, for those of you who are like, I live on East Coast, West Coast, what's an ACT? It's an SAT, essentially. It's just another standardized test, but instead of having scores in the thousands, you have a score between 1 and 36. How'd you do? Between 1 and 36. Okay. You get a 36, you're perfect in their mind. Now, we need to take a look at just showing how much these scores actually fell.
Adam Snoza is a numbers guy. Well, numbers, English, science, anything that appears on the ACT.
You do see a drop here.
That's why the president of Aim High Test Prep was not surprised by this number. ACT test scores nationwide are at a 30-year low.
The pandemic and learning loss that happened was severe.
He says there are learning gaps from when students were online or out sick, but he believes there is merit in working a little extra hard to fill them in.
There's just a lot of holes in their knowledge that requires a lot of digging to find, and then someone to walk them through it.
That's part of the problem, he says, along with the fact that many schools don't require the test anymore, so students may not take it as seriously or take it at all.
Even though they could get a score that is strong, competitive, and help bring up averages, but they see it as a non-starter.
I think it's a good thing because I think it's good that we're looking at other criteria and we've become critical of this test.
But some students may need to take the ACT to qualify for scholarships. So as part of the solution to make the financial aid system more equitable, UNO Vice Chancellor Rich Klein says a third to a half of the money that would historically go to students based on their ACT scores will in fall 2024 be diverted to students based on financial need.
It is really trying to align the resources that we have to help the most students actually achieve those dreams that they might have.
Oh, I have some dreams.
So, Katie, 30-year low.
Yep.
I'll repeat that, 30-year low. on the ACT test scores. And how long are we going to hear pandemic learning loss? How many more years can they? They're going to milk this, aren't they? I mean, they're already milking. That would take
skill. No, we need more people who know how to milk things. All right. It's just going to continue, and it has continued. And so what we're at with the ACT, and I find it interesting, because you have the SAT, the ACT, any of these standardized tests. It's all about these school districts having to teach to the test. You know, the argument, teach to the test.
What does that mean?
It means all they care about for the education of the child is to make it so the kid can pass the test.
Okay.
And it's not really, are the kids learning, or are they learning enough to remember it to fill in a bubble on a test and then forget actual knowledge?
So they're doing a lot of focus on learning the content of what's on the test so they can pass it.
Yep, it depends on where you are. But yeah, so and the thing is, it's kind of like, are these tests useful anymore? Do the kids even care? Well, when a lot of California, when they drop the requirement for the ACT test, like, oh, come on, kids, we just want your money. Then, yeah, I could see why these scores would drop as well. I'm probably blaming that more than the fact that we have a pandemic. The pandemic, these scores have been going down and going down. So it's not just the pandemic that caused this new low. Now, out of, again, a score of 1 to 36, the average ACT score right now, 19.5.
Out of 36?
Ouch. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
not a great percentage.
That is really not good. You could guess your way to getting like 22 on the ACTs. I'm not even like you. We should probably just go.
And a lot of kids are guessing.
They are.
Yeah.
So it's going down, and it says the average score was below the benchmark for college readiness identified by the testing organization in every subject except English, where scores were still down from last year. Now, U.S. public school students lost the equivalent of approximately half a year of math education and a quarter of a year of reading during the pandemic, they say. And that's according to their research that they did back in May. Now, the CEO of the ACT, so ACT CEO, so many letters, Janet Godwin identified decreased access to school counselors, canceled extracurricular activities, and an overnight pivot to remote learning as the factors contributing to student difficulties. Now, I don't quite think it's the fact that they didn't have their extracurriculars available to them, or that they didn't have the school counselor to go talk to. I think that it's maybe in the classroom, which they weren't in. They didn't have teachers teaching them. They maybe had teachers assigning them things to do, but were teachers doing the job of the teacher to truly teach, or were they just facilitating or not having class at all?
What's interesting, you mentioned college readiness, and I thought even the colleges lowered their standards.
Correct.
But I want to go to the end of this article. Very interesting here that remember that schools and education agencies received $190.5 billion in COVID-19. What year is this? 2023, almost 2024. But COVID-19 relief funds from Congress beginning in 2020. But it's interesting that districts that received federal assistance were expected to spend 20% at least of those resources on addressing learning loss. How do you measure that, or how do you hold them accountable for checking? Okay, we don't make sure you're spending money to find out why kids are doing worse.
Yep. Nope. All right. Well, still to come, nearly 70% of America's active military are fat, which is why a new fat camp has been created to help recruits shed that weight. We're going to show you how the military is trying to drop the pounds when we return.
If you have a smartphone, tablet, Roku, or Apple TV, consider downloading the FreedomProject Media app. It's 100% free and includes all of our weekly shows, plus lecture series, archive programs, and award-winning animated videos for families like the Presidential Minute, Battles of America, and Heroes of the West. Don't rely on the social media giants to keep you informed. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app from your app store and allow notifications. And we'll let you know when a new video is ready.
All right, straight to the headline. Nearly 70% of active duty military members are overweight. Obesity rate is double what it was a decade ago, 10 years ago. So Katie, before we get into some of the nuts and bolts here, and we've got a video, it's a mess. They've got recruiting shortages, historic recruiting shortages. They've got a feminized, politically correct military, a woke military now, and now we've got issues with the health standards and expectations. So let's watch this video. We'll come back and we'll talk about it.
So in an attempt to resolve recruiting issues and at the same time help young Americans achieve their dreams, the US Army started an experiment. They created the Future Soldier Preparatory Course with 2 strands, one helping those who failed academically and the other helping with weight loss, which some have affectionately dubbed Army Fat Camp. Exercise alone won't shed the pounds. This is a holistic program incorporating mental and spiritual aspects, sleep and nutrition.
Right now we're going to go inside the dining facility and see defect operations.
The required body fat percentage ranges between 18 and 26% for men and 26 and 34% for women, dependent on height.
As you can see on the defect operations, you have the food labeled in a green, amber, red status. Green being the healthiest and red being towards the left in your not so healthy options. Per Army Regulation 350-6, we cannot tell a student that they are not allowed to eat anything on the hotline. However, with proper mentorship and education, they're making those wise decisions and able to make those choices on their own. And the idea is to have a well-balanced meal that incorporates all those leafy greens and colorful vegetables.
Other issues related to BMI may be a bit more surprising in the military. Katie, BMI and serving all these different foods and giving them a choice, putting color coding the foods. She just said, I'm tattle on you. She just said, just don't serve it. Don't give them the option to eat unhealthy food. Katie, go ahead. I just wound you up.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
BMI is a joke. It's a joke of an index, the body mass index. According to that index, I'm overweight. However, it's because I'm short. It only looks at your height and your weight. It doesn't look at your strength at all. So you could have someone who is a twig and they're like, oh, well, you just meet the healthy weight. You're almost underweight, but you're just there. You're good. That person can't help a fellow, like if a fellow soldier goes down, that guy can't drag him out. But hey, he's good, so he gets to be in the military. You have someone who's considered overweight or obese, but can like lift a tank. Nope, you're not allowed in. Even though you'd be able to actually save your fellow soldier in times of war, you're out. So that metric, it's a metric to use. It's somewhere to start with, but it should not be the entire like indicator of what happens. And regarding the food, everything for healthy living, yes, it starts in the kitchen. It's not how much you work out. It's not how much you lift. It starts, your base fundamentals is in the kitchen. If you were just serving them green lettuce there, like I saw it was iceberg lettuce, there's no nutritional value in that. But if there's red choices, eliminate the red choices. Make everything a great choice.
Let's get healthy, America.
Let's get healthy, America. Thank you. And you out there, don't forget, you can catch Educated on the go by subscribing on our favorite or your favorite audio podcast platform. I have a couple favorites there. Don't forget, download the Freedom Project Media app wherever you want to get that audio podcast. Now, for David and myself, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for supporting this show. Until next time, stay educated.